in some ways, I think that touches the essence of the dilemmas, policy issues, the kind of things that keep most ministers up at night, because we work in a very globalized environment. And one of the reasons why we have succeeded is that we both have to deal with today's problems, but Singapore has always also looked at 20 years ahead, 30 years ahead. So if we were only concerned with today's problems, by and large, the people in the front row would be happy. But if we look at 20 years, 30 years, then that really looks after most of the people sitting behind. Their prime working ages, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So what would Singapore be like in 10 years? What would Singapore be like in 20 years? What would Singapore be like in 30 years? What do we do? What do we have to do now to make sure that we succeed in 20 years? Most countries, by and large, don't think in those terms, because you really touch on the challenges, the opportunities. What do we need to do as a government? What do we need to do as a country, as a people? That's really it. And what are the trade-offs? So let's look at it. See, I've asked them to put up some slides. The starting point in all of this has got to be our current financial position, because you operate within a certain financial framework. So let's look at that, if it works. This is our budget. Just look at financial year 2013. Okay, we have an operating revenue of 55 billion, expenditures of 60 billion. Pause there. Today, we spend more than what we earn. Okay, in simple terms, that's called a structural deficit. Any family that earns less than what it spends will soon get into trouble. Likewise for countries. Not a lot of people are aware of this, even though the state budgets are presented year after year. But our actual expenditure today is more than what we collect in taxes, COE, whatever. So whenever in Parliament, whether it's PAP MPs or opposition MPs, the usual stand is, can we spend more on this? Can we spend more on that? Can we spend more on this? I sit back and I say, it's very easy to spend other people's money. You just impose more taxes and you spend. And it's very easy to be popular by spending money. But the problems will then be passed on to those people sitting behind, not the current generation. It's very simple. But why are we not in an actual deficit? Because we have, over the years, squirreled away enough money, reserves. We get net investment returns, which is 7 billion. So overall, we don't run into a deficit. But that's only because we are taking money, part of the income stream, from the reserves. So remember that. The fiscal position is not as sort of allows us to be completely unmindful of our expenditure in the way that some people discuss policy. So starting point. If you look at it today, 31% of Singaporeans pay income tax. 69% don't. What does that really mean? The education people get, the social security system, the housing, all of it, and the secure environment, defense, everything gets paid for out of the taxes of less than a third of the population. 2/3 of the population, or more, nearly 70%, are able to enjoy the benefits of the country without having to pay income tax. That's our approach. Try and let people keep as much of the money they earn, and the corollary of that is, of course, if you want something, a specific service, by and large, you pay for that. There are only two ways of doing this. I tax more, and I then decide what you spend by providing services, or I leave the money with you, you decide what you want to spend it on. Of course, there will be a group at the bottom who need a lot of support.